Right, so we have a quorum. Yeah,
We do.
very good. All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice
liberty,
for all.
justice for all.
All right, if we could have a roll call, please, Executive Director.
A. Impastato,
Present.
A. Lewitt. Here. D. Mello,
Present.
B. Reyes.
Here.
M. Russo,
Present.
J. Sanford,
Here.
E. Seitzman.
Present.
Okay, I would like to advise those present that notice of this regular meeting of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken has been provided to the public in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Act. Notice of this regular monthly November board meeting has been scheduled for Thursday, November 18th, 2021, was sent to the Jersey Journal and Star Ledger on Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, as notification to the general public of said meeting, and sent to the city clerk of Hoboken on Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, with a copy of the agenda to be posted on the bulletin board in Hoboken City Hall, the Hoboken Public Library, and the Hoboken Police Department. I direct the minutes of this meeting to state that I have announced that adequate notice of this meeting has been given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act. In addition, I direct that the minutes of this meeting to state the following. As a result of the restrictions established by Executive Order 107 issued by the Governor of New Jersey with respect to the need to limit public gatherings to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted exclusively through the use of communications equipment. This procedure is in accordance with NJSA 10:4-9.3, which states that a public body shall not be deemed to have violated any provision of the Open Public Meetings Act in conducting a meeting by means of communication or other electronic equipment. In addition, this procedure complies with Article 3, Section 7 of the Authority Bylaws, which allows for participation in authority meetings by members of the Board of Commissioners by means of telephonic conference or similar communications equipment. Now, I think you have your addendum, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In keeping with the Housing Authority's normal practice of affording members of the public the opportunity to comment at monthly board meetings, the authority will be accepting comment during this meeting in one of three ways. First, comments can be sent by email to hha@myhhanj.com from now until 7:30 p.m. All timely and legally appropriate comments received by email will be read aloud by an authority representative for all attendees of the meeting to hear. Second, beginning at approximately 7:30 p.m., the authority will allow access to participants one at a time to comment using their telephone or through Zoom's audio function. Third, if you are participating in the meeting using Zoom from a web browser or smart device, you can submit comment using the Zoom Q&A function, which can be accessed by clicking the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. We require that any member of the public who wishes to submit comment using the Q&A function, please limit themselves to a single submission rather than submitting multiple brief comments. In the event that a member of the public submits more than one comment, only the first legally appropriate comment will be read aloud at the meeting. Any comment submitted after 7:30 p.m. will be rejected and will not be read aloud at the meeting. In addition, please note that while the Zoom video of this meeting is being streamed through Facebook Live, public comment will not be accepted through Facebook or Facebook Live. Any member of the public watching through Facebook Live who wishes to comment may do so by email, by telephone, or by using the Zoom Q&A function. The email address again is hha@myhhanj.com, and the telephone number is 646-558-8656, webinar ID 485-881-849. Finally, please be advised that the standard practice of the executive director and members of the board is to refrain from engaging in a back and forth discussion during the public comment portion of authority meetings. However, in light of the ongoing crisis, the authority realizes that limited exceptions to that practice may be necessary. On behalf of the authority, I thank you in advance for your patience and understanding. At this time, in order to allow more time for members of the public to submit comment in advance of 7:30, I recommend that the board consider adopting a resolution to reorder the agenda to allow the executive director to present his report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll make a motion to reorder the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, or could we have a vote, please?
A. Impastato,
Yes.
A. Lewitt,
yes,
D. Mello,
Yes,
B. Reyes,
yes,
M. Russo,
Yes.
J. Sanford,
Yes.
E. Seitzman.
yes,
great. So let's get started, please.
Mr. Chairman, if I may apologize in advance, I am having some technical difficulties, so I'll be offline. So I'm actually conducting this meeting through my phone, but
Okay.
I am here. I just am not on camera.
No worries.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So, Executive Director, the floor is yours, and I think you want to pass off to our professionals.
Thank you so much. I will note that tonight, on the public portion, we're in essence going to have two sections of that public portion. We've got our partners, our planning partners here with us tonight on screen, and they are here to answer any questions, any issues that we have that have come up over the last time period on our rehabilitation and redevelopment project, our Hoboken Housing Forward initiative. We have had a number of meetings over the past months, and we're moving ahead. So we had a great, I think, special board meeting Tuesday night. And on that night, the residents, because of the nature of a special board meeting, did not have a chance to ask questions and comment. So we wanted to make sure our planning team was here tonight with us. And when we do start off the public portion, we'd like to start off with questions regarding the renovation redevelopment project. And then when possible, our planning group can go about their way and we can get on with the rest of our meeting. So again, what I'm asking for is if our questions and comments regarding the renovation redevelopment come first in the public portion, and then other comments regarding basic housing authority activities could come kind of in the second part of the public comment period. First, I am going to give my report fairly quickly, condensed version, so we can get on over to the planning portion of our public comment period and have our planners address the board a little bit here tonight. So I will give a condensed version of my report and then we'll move on over.
Sounds good.
Okay, so our folks are with us tonight. Welcome to everyone on our planning team. I do need to note that our bids came back on our Fox Hill project, and the bids were high. So you've got a motion in front of you tonight to reject those bids and have us go back out and rebid that project. We can talk about that further when that motion comes up. We have been working with the security committee. We've gotten brand new redesigned trespassing signs that are being ordered. They're going to be going up all over the housing authority, kind of a retooled initiative with the police and the security committee. We've also got a motion in front of you tonight regarding slightly changing the time on the closing of the Harrison Gardens courtyard. The Housing for Hoboken did not meet this past month, but it is time, and we're taking a look at putting out for our public seats on that. If you remember, we went out publicly last time, and we're going to be re-accepting applications for those public seats here in the near future. Our vacancy issues remain important, and we're starting to really see the fruits of our efforts over the past months. We continue to expect that by the end of December, we'll be at least a 95% occupancy level throughout the housing authority. We anticipate, and this is a big number, 60 lease ups in November. We're already off and running on those. We're getting people into units just as fast as we can, with an additional 30 units to be leased up in December and 30 in January. So the units are getting finished. Cabinets are continuing to come in a bit slowly, although we're looking at every resource we can. But I think we're doing incredibly well. Our contractor is turning those units over to us continually. Local 55 is. Our waiting list is in place. Mr. Merchant and his team are doing the appropriate paperwork and checks on folks, and we're moving folks in. We did have 12 move-ins and 4 transfers in October, which is that first step up. You haven't seen that in a while. And again, you're going to see that vastly accelerate over the next 2 months. Our software system is in place, up and running. We continue to refine that. Our special projects continue to do well. Our compactors are underway. Our facade project in Monroe and Adams is in permitting, and our emergency generator project is still with the architect right now. We did have a finance meeting last night, and we are intending to move toward the issuance of a new RFP for project-based units through Housing Choice Voucher Program coming up in January. We continue to work on our REAC inspections. We have assigned our crews there. Our boiler crew has been busy, as you can imagine, even though we have lucked out with some milder weather. We've already had some chilly nights, and we have worked very, very hard at making sure not only are our boiler systems up and running, but they're well maintained and functioning. We had a small hot water problem over at Harrison. We got it fixed within about 24 hours. Proud of my staff for jumping in and getting those hot water tanks replaced. And we'll continue to focus on our residents' comfort and enjoyment of their units. So that's kind of a very, very condensed report. I know other things come up during the course of the meeting, but I would like to hand it over to Daniel Perez for just a little bit, because the holiday season is upon us. And we've got a lot going on the resident services side as far as activities. We have been out for our first couple Thanksgiving celebrations over at Fox Hill and today at Adams, and another one tomorrow at Monroe Gardens. Just a great celebratory mood, and we expect to continue that. We've got the holidays coming up in December. So I'd like Daniel to fill us in just a little bit on the activities coming up, and then we'll take it from there. So
Thank you,
Daniel, you
Mr.
want to give us a little review?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rego, because it's a nice presentation. I'm going to be as brief as possible. I want to start going back with the Halloween celebration and thank Assemblywoman Chaparro for sponsoring the Halloween lunch party at the Fox Hill Gardens for the residents over there. So we're really thankful for Assemblywoman Chaparro for doing that for the residents. Also, Councilman Phil Cohen stepped in as well and also sponsored a second Halloween event, and also sponsor our recent Thanksgiving celebration at Fox Hill. So we really want to thank Phil and Rebecca for committing to the residents, senior residents at Fox Hill. And also I want to thank them because they're also committed to providing the luncheon for our holiday celebration as well. So thank you to Phil and Rebecca. Additionally, I want to thank Assemblywoman Chaparro, also committed to supporting the residents of Adams for the holidays with our celebration. And also Councilman Ruben Ramos, also committed to supporting the luncheon for our seniors at Monroe Gardens in December. So really thankful for our partners that continually step in and support our senior residents in our developments. Thank you, Mr. Recco. I know we have a lot going on tonight. I just wanted to share those very quickly. Thank you so much.
So,
Thank you.
Chairman, can I just,
Yes.
is there gonna be a time where we ask the director some questions about his executive report? I just don't wanna, like rush through. There are some things I have some questions on, and I thought we had a special meeting on Tuesday to do the presentation, and
So why
kind
don't,
of go through all that.
why don't you ask your most pressing question or two now? How about that?
Okay, so the security cameras, director, there, I know that they went down, and in speaking with the Hoboken Police, it seems that this is an ongoing problem where it wasn't, just a week or two. It's been on and off for a month and a half now, where we continue to have some system problems. These are very expensive cameras. Obviously, we spent a lot of money on them. We've had some recent crime and activity that's not safe for our residents. So the importance of getting these things fixed and up and running for good is paramount, especially right now. So yeah, I know you sent a text message to Barbara and myself and Councilman Russo, but can you kind of fill us in and give us a report on what's going on? Is the problem fixed for good? And what seems to be the problem?
Sure. As I noted in my text, we believe the problem has been answered. The connection over from the housing authority's camera system to the headquarters of the police is an extra connection outside of our system. And apparently that was the issue, that extra connection was having connection issues from the housing authority over to the police headquarters. And once we found out that that connection was faulty, was happening on and off, we had our techs and the police folks get together and figure out what the problem was. The problem was actually a Verizon problem that we got solved. We believe that's solved. Now, I will say that also that during the course of that problem, the police always had access to our cameras. They have access to our internal camera headquarters that they go over to. They have a key to it. They have 24/7 access to it. So they, even during the time that headquarters was having issues getting on from police headquarters, they were still able to access our system.
So when the police headquarters are down and they can't view it, that doesn't mean that the camera is not working and recording. Is
That's
that correct?
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. We still have all of that video. It's still there. And we can go back to that at any time. And we work with the police.
So you're confident now that feed at headquarters is up and running, smooth, operating full capacity, and convenient for HPD to get on and see what's going on?
Yes, and I've verified that with the captain over at the police department.
Cool. All right, my second question for the director is in regards to his yearly evaluation. It's my, and this kind of falls under the procurement committee, but it's supposed to be done yearly, 60 days before the end of the year. It has not, I don't think it has been done. So we've passed that deadline. The second question of that is that I've addressed it 3 or 4 times this past year in 2021. My concern is that both in his contract, both on the evaluation, second on the evaluation, and in the bylaws, it says that the board in its entirety is to review handwritten evaluations of the director. And it's my question has always been, I know we have not done that in the past, and the procurement committee does that evaluation. But it's my opinion that, and I don't see how you would disagree with this, that all of us should be filling out that evaluation and handing it in so that, everyone's opinion, everyone's value system, strengths, weaknesses can be addressed. And collectively as a body, if we do it that way, it will only make things better. This is not commenting on any job that Director Rector has done or not done, just solely on the process of his evaluation. I've sent the chairman an email on this. I brought it up at meetings. It is still yet to be addressed. So I think, if this is possible to have a director, have you had the evaluation done? And chairman, where do we see the the process? Is it possible to change it?
I mean, we'll take it under consideration to change it. I'm not going to make a statement on that because I'm really not prepared to make a statement on that tonight. It might not
You said the
change.
same thing 6 months ago, that you would take it under consideration.
I believe I did.
So,
I'm
so
leaning,
I'm-
I'm leaning
you know.
against it. I'll tell you that much. I'm leaning against it, but
what would be the reason for having
I'm not
every,
going to get into that. We have a packed agenda.
what's that?
I'm not going to get into that. We have a packed agenda. Okay.
So can we,
So
can we-
it's been noted and you've made your opinion clear and I thank you for that.
is it possible to go into the next meeting into a closed session to discuss it? Maybe Harold could put something together and I can
Mr. Chair,
discuss the
Point of
reason.
order,
Yes. Commissioner Sanford.
point of order, this, if Commissioner Impastato wants to go into this, there are other opportunities in the agenda to go into it. Right now,
Yeah,
we're
no,
doing
he's
the
not,
report.
but Commissioner, he's not talking about tonight. He's suggesting next meeting. So I would suggest you email myself and our counselor and ask what your suggestion is for a reason to go into closed session, and we will consider that for next meeting.
And then the last thing I would comment on, and thanks for the time here, is can you answer if the evaluation for him has been done, or are we past the deadline for 2021?
It has not been completed yet. I wouldn't call us past the deadline, but no, it has not been completed yet.
Well, it's 60 days prior to the end of the year.
I understand your point. I understand your point. And I just told you it has not been done yet. So you can make of that what you choose. All right, let's move on. So do we have any other questions for the director based on the executive director's report? Yes, Commissioner Reyes.
Sorry, I'm trying to unmute myself. So I have some questions. Back on mid-October, I sent an email to Mr. Recco as well as Frank concerning and trying to get an understanding of how the transfer list was happening. The transfers were happening. I never received any response back as to what was going on or how it was answered. I'm having a very hard time because, as everybody knows, I'm the resident commissioner, so I see the residents on a daily basis. And when I wake up to 6, 7, 8 messages concerning transfers that are happening, and they're happening quickly, and it's not people who've never been transferred, it's people who have been transferred and then transferred again. It's frustrating, and it's frustrating for me not to be able to get an answer. And when I reach out to housing, I reach out to the manager, I reach out to Mr. Merchant, I reach out to Mr. Recco, and I don't get an answer. It's frustrating. And so I went ahead and I had sent my email on October 18th requesting some type of response so that I can understand what's going on and I know how to better answer to the residents. That was never answered. So I'm looking at the report and the transfer list, and it's not jiving because the information that I'm receiving of transfers that are being done and individuals, it states that for Andrew Jackson, there was no transfers, but there were transfers made last month in Andrew Jackson. And I mean, I obviously wouldn't put in the individuals or residents' information on a public meeting, but they were done. So I'm not quite sure if this report is accurate or it isn't. And if it isn't, I would like to know why, because there was transfers made, but this is saying that there was none made.
I would welcome the opportunity to sit down with you or a committee and go through each one individually. I must say that I'm sorry I missed the October 18th email. It wasn't in my consciousness. I'll be glad to look back, and we'll be glad to sit with you or anyone else that wants to and go through each and every one along with Mr. Merchant and show you exactly how that process works. We'll be glad to do that. I think, the more transparent we can be on that, the better. And we'd be glad to do that. We'd be glad to set that up with you next week or whenever.
Absolutely. I'd be more than glad to meet with you guys. I also have questions, other questions regarding some issues that I sent you guys regarding, I believe there was, I know for a fact that there was 2 that I sent, and then there's two that I emailed on early November, and I was just looking for the other ones, but I didn't have time because I got on the meeting. But I know there was several resident issues that were happening, some regarding to maintenance. They're putting their work orders in, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and yet no one is coming. There's no communication with the residents. They're told, okay, your work order has been placed, and then the resident stays home, nothing happens. Some are due to mold, some are cracking walls. There's other issues in some apartments that I'm also not going to make public, but I did send emails about that. And I haven't heard back. I don't know what the update is, and I don't expect you guys to actually say, oh, this is what's done, but a simple email communicating, Commissioner, this has been resolved. That's fine. That's fine. I'm okay with it. I just feel like there's a lack of communication, and I wish it would be corrected. That's it.
We will work on that for you. I'm
Thank
with
you.
Okay, any other questions? And if we can move on, I think it's time for Torty Gallus to
Very
have
good.
the floor and take some questions.
Very good. So for this portion of the meeting, what I'd like to do is introduce Troy McGee from Torty Gallus for just a few opening comments, and then we will turn it over to any comments that have come in or anyone who wants to speak in the public session. So Troy, if you could introduce.
Mark, if I can.
Yes.
Right.
You may.
2 additional pieces of information. One is that in making public comment at this time, since it will be limited only to the topic of the repositioning, the public should know that they will have an additional and equal amount of time, our usual 5 minutes, to comment on things in general later. So you'll get 2 5-minute comment periods, seriatim, one after the other, the second one after we're finished with the presenters' answers. And the other is, Mark, I would suggest that the Torty Gallus presenters introduce themselves individually.
Very good. And we're planning on that. So Troy is going to make a few and then introduce his team and or have his folks. If you want them to speak, they can introduce themselves as well. But Troy, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Recco, and good evening, everyone. So yes, when I do introductions of the team, I would like everybody to introduce themselves. That way people can actually hear their voice. But before we do that, just to give some clarity, when we start answering questions, just to make sure that we're all on the same page of who can best answer what. So when you have, let's just say, questions about the actual physical plan, the designs that we've actually done regarding that, that's where the Torty Gallus team, Higher Gruel, and TCG can help with those questions. But let's just say if there's questions about resident relocation or anything associated with that, this is where Christina, I see you, Christina Payam Smith is on the call. I'm not sure if Tori Gonzoli and Shannon Leaston are on as well, but I would just say the questions outside the design parameters, if you could direct those questions to the enterprise group. And so with that, I would like to first ask the Torty Gallus team to introduce themselves.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Stemble, and I work with Troy and the Torty Gallus team. I'm the project manager for the planning effort, and I'd like to pass it on to Brian.
Good evening. My name is Brian Tomeno. I'm a certified planner with Torty Gallus and Partners. I've been working on this concept since the summer. Looking forward to hearing comments. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniela Tony. I'm an architectural designer at Torre de Gallis. I'm really excited to be working with everyone.
And thank you. And now we also have the co-leaders of this effort. We have Higher Gruel. If you could introduce yourself, and then the other introduction right after that, the other co-leader is Jaime Bordenave with the Communities Group, TCG.
Thank you, Troy. Susan Gruel, a principal with Higher Gruel and Associates. We are part of the team. We are New Jersey consulting planners and very happy to be part of the team. Jaime?
Thanks, Susan. I'm Jaime Bordenave. I'm the founder of the Communities Group. We've been working for 37 years with housing authorities around the country, helping with both the planning and the implementation, the development, and especially the financial engineering, shall we say, of how to get the job paid for. So we've been a subcontractor to Torre de Gallis since at least the year 2000 on different projects and collaborated on upwards of 30 projects similar to yours. Happy to be working with you.
Okay, thank you, Jaime. And with that, we are prepared to take on questions.
You want to have Christina introduce?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. Christina, please.
Great, thank you. My name is Christina Pam-Smith. I'm with Enterprise Community Partners. I'm the project manager of the HUD technical assistance that the Housing Authority is receiving. And we're working in partnership with the Torre de Gallis team in terms of that repositioning as we work with them to prepare for implementation of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And now I will say we're open to answering any questions that you may have.
And our folks, Angel, Lourdes, is there anyone that's online to ask any questions regarding this?
We only have Adrienne Rollins, and she does not want to discuss about the planning. She has other questions.
Okay.
I do see, Lord, that there is one hand raised of a member of the public on Zoom. So you may want to just double check on that, see if that's a general comment or a specific planning comment.
Okay, will do. Give me 1 second.
Looks like it's Barbara Reyes.
Yes, I have a question regarding the planning. I forgot to ask the other day. It was regarding the how can I put it? The way that you outlined where the senior building was going to be, and that you guys were, I guess, thinking about maybe putting it near the fields. I just feel that I don't think that would be the best place to put the seniors in. And I'm only saying because the field is there and we see what happens at the nighttime when they're playing games, people are yelling and screaming and everybody's, they're having a good time. And some seniors don't want to have that noise. Unless there's a way that you guys are building the building where the noise is really not going to affect them, then maybe, but I don't think that putting them next to a football field that everyone in the entire community is going to use is very smart. Just an idea, just my personal thoughts.
That's a great point. Thank you, Commissioner Reyes. We'll note that as it's an excellent point. So there are ways certainly to make the building quieter against certain uses, but that's a good point we'll take into consideration.
Well, there's also the front and the back of the building. So sometimes the people want to be on the quiet side and other people want to be watching the action.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, and then I believe, so that was Commissioner Reyes, and then I believe Cheryl Fallick might be the member of the public who has her hand up, who has just communicated.
Yes, she wants to speak.
All right.
Angel?
She's allowed to talk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Cheryl. Welcome.
Thanks. Two questions that I think are quick questions. The first one I think is for Higher Gruel. I listened in on the two meetings, the one in person and the plan that was a day or so ago. And at the, not the plan meeting, but the one that was held in person, I guess, I heard not from anybody from the housing authority, but from the city, discussion about the economic development opportunities and sort of the land value, the asset value of the land. So my question with that sort of as the foundation of it is, how dependent, if we know, is this project on private funding? That's the first one. And the second one, I guess, is for Tori Gallus. Well presented plan, by the way, by, oh, I don't even see him anymore, but the guy who gave it, oh, yes, Brian.
Yes, thank you.
The one thing that jumped out at me is that it looked like they're, and sort of piggybacking with my first question, perhaps what I would call, and it might be because of the phasing, a concentration of poverty, meaning that it seemed like as you phase it in, the housing authority residents are all being moved to, say, Harrison and 5th and 6th, which if you were to overlay a triangle on Hoboken, that's the farthest distance from our mass transit, our direct mass transit into the city. I know that the light rail is close, but is that a phasing thing, or is that by design, which I'd hate to think it was? So we seem to be moving everybody into 5th and Harrison and 6th and Harrison. So those are my two questions. I would love to hear answers on both. Thank you very much.
Okay, if I'm happy to respond to the first, which is that I really can't respond to that because it is beyond what we are, where we are, and whether, and Cheryl, what I understand you asking is how dependent is the plan on private funding and private development? Is that
That's
correct?
That is correct.
Okay, yeah, and we're
Concern.
not, we're not there, and certainly I think that that's beyond what we may be, our scope is. It's a good question. I'm not suggesting that that's not relevant, but we can't answer that at this stage. Although Cheryl, I think when we were talking, we were talking about the importance of economic development opportunities in light of the plan as such as well, which I think that everybody recognizes that that's a component of what we're looking at.
Okay.
And I can answer the second question. I think I can. So
Before we leave the first question,
go
Mark,
ahead.
are you all right if I comment a little bit on experiences in other communities and how?
I mean, that's why you're here.
Please
That's why
do.
we're here. Yes.
So as you can imagine, it's going to take a lot of money to either totally redevelop or in some cases renovate your properties. And it's going to have to come from somewhere. The authority doesn't have those funds. And there are things in the current legislation, the Build Back Better legislation that I think the House is voting on today or tomorrow, that have some substantial, in effect, capital funding. That's the one source of money that authorities do get directly from HUD to address the capital needs of the properties. And this would be, the most funding that anybody could imagine coming from HUD should the legislation be passed in its current form with the numbers that are in it. Other than that funding, which by the way, would not be enough to rebuild your buildings. And you will likely need to do what every other authority that is redeveloping their properties is they're using the value of the property itself to leverage debt. that's secured by the property, and it's not an obligation of the authority itself. It's a obligation of the project. And then in many cases, leveraging the debt with low-income housing tax credits. Those are the main sources. There have been 150,000 units of public housing that have been redeveloped so far in the last 10 years under an initiative called Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. And those are the main sources of funding. We can certainly provide some overview for the residents and the board of all the transactions that have been done and what their sources of funding have been. That's easily accessible information. So I hope that gives you a little bit of orientation.
And Jaime, since you just spoke so eloquently and knowledgeably about the finances, you were involved with Vision 2020 from a financial perspective, weren't you? You and your
No,
friend?
sir. No.
You
No.
weren't?
No.
Didn't you have a relationship with the housing authority beforehand though?
No, sir. No. I would have liked to have had, but no.
But I want to just break down for people that, basically, so Tortigalis and Partners has experience across the nation redeveloping specifically public housing authorities, federally funded public housing authorities, and they have an impressive track record of not displacing people and really reinvigorating neighborhoods that are often were at public housing authorities at the center of those neighborhoods. Notably for me is that in Washington, D.C., that whole area where the Nationals ballpark currently exists. Troy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you folks kind of almost get that whole rejuvenation of that neighborhood in Washington, D.C. started by rehabilitating the housing authority in that neighborhood?
So the area or neighborhood that Mr. Mello is referring to, if people want to look it up, it's called Arthur Capper. And so yes, it was a neighborhood that was in distress. And so it did have its challenges. And so one of the things that did occur is we were part of the team. It was not just Tortigalis, but thank you for the compliment there, but it was a bigger effort, but it was everyone working together to revitalize that area. And I would say the redevelopment of that neighborhood was the catalyst for the bigger transformation that occurred. And yes, that was one where you also there was you didn't have displacement of residents where you were blatantly. It wasn't anything like a blatantly kicking out residents or anything of that nature at all. So yes, you do have residents that are neighbors. They have the various incomes, but it was a successful project, as we see it. So the only other thing, and Christina, if you can just please comment on this as well, because a lot of good things were said, but the one thing I want people to understand is that the housing authority is not selling their land or anything like that. I mean, could you just let folks know that that is not in the cards?
Right. So repositioning is really about changing the platform that the housing authority is using to house residents. And so there are certain rules and regulations depending on what program that they use for resident rights and protections. And the housing authority and the board have reiterated and have set forth certain principles, development principles that have stated that keeping residents housed in housing authority properties is a priority. This initiative is not to, it's to redevelop the properties, but keep the residents housed.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I also want to point out to people that so HUD is the ones who provided the services of enterprise to us. And what they're doing is, in my assessment of it, is basically making us as a housing authority a much wiser consumer of what Tortigalis does, which is, and their partners are doing, which is planning out how we can redevelop our housing authority, how we can avoid anybody being displaced, even on the short term. All right, nobody's going to be displaced, and how we can do this in an economically feasible way where it will actually happen. It won't just be presentations and goals that don't have any real plausible plan behind them, but will actually work. And Enterprise is on our side, and Enterprise has been provided to us by HUD to make sure that we're having Tortigalis plan a realistic and feasible plan that's going to adhere to our goals. And our main goal has always been, and no matter how much we might disagree on other things, has been that nobody gets displaced and we don't lose any capacity. So I thank you all for your
I just
effort.
have
And I
just
wanted
one comment.
to point that out because it can't be pointed out enough. Yes, Commissioner Impastato.
Just as I mentioned, I just wanted on Tuesday at the special meeting, I just wanted to comment on record that and again, it's another example tonight that we see, not a lot of comments or questions from the public and from our residents, but their opinion is paramount and the most important. And one way to get that feedback, which, I'm confused why it hasn't been done yet. And I urge you guys to do it as soon as possible, is through a survey to gather that data and to get those questions out via Nixle alert, posted in the elevators, to fill out, to have as many residents as possible give their feedback on their time, not on camera, not on, not showing up to a meeting, but in their homes. We could deliver pieces of paper where they fill out the survey, but we need to get our residents' feedback into what they want, where they want it, how they want it, what money should be spent here and there, and then our professionals will give us an opinion. My second comment is, and just so residents to understand this, Tortigalis is getting paid for this, and it's their first payment. Their list of bills here is $43,000 for this. I guess it's just October is the amount. So it is a lot of money that we are paying Tortigalis. This is not, they're doing a great job, and this is not to speak to that, but we just want residents who might be listening to realize and understand that these are professionals and they get paid for this work, and they work for us. So every dollar spent, we want to make sure that they're doing things that are answering your questions and are fulfilling your needs and wants for your home, not my home, not Chairman Mello's home, not anybody's home that's a politician in Hoboken, but for your home. And I would like to see a survey done as soon as possible, get some good questions out there, and get the data so that we have something to fall back on. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Excellent points all around excellent points. And this is still, it's not a done process, right? So we can absolutely get a survey out, right? I'm sure, Troy, you would agree that can be an additional way to accumulate data. And
and as we mentioned, we've already been working on that survey. So we've already got a platform for that survey, and we would expect that in December that survey can be out.
Yeah, and if I can just thank you, Commissioner Pasto, for that statement. We wholeheartedly agree that we're here. We are professionals, but we are professionals for a reason to be brought in for this. And we wholeheartedly agree that this is for the residents and to improve their lives. That's 100% our goal. That's why we're in this business. And to talk about the survey, I think this is actually a great time to have a survey, because we've developed a kind of a structure of a framework here, right? That we've explained in multiple accounts. There's been opportunity to see it and digest it. And to get their feedback on a plan that is implementable, right? Initial surveys are good for, and we tried to do that as much as we can in the residents meeting, as far as getting their feedback written down. Everything that was said was written down. That's in kind of accumulated into a document, and we have that, and we use that as our guide. But at this point, having another survey to kind of react on a plan that is feasible, right? To get their feedback on how to make this plan even better would be a value at this point. I also wanted to not ignore Ms. Fallick's question about the phasing and the location of residents. We certainly did not, we're not intending to move residents away from transit in any manner. It does have to do with the practicality of ensuring that no one is displaced and finding space to build in the first phases that have large tracts of land that have low density housing currently on them, so we can move those people into these buildings. That's kind of the process we've been going for. We do, the other thing is trying to incorporate mixed income in all of the buildings, or we're acknowledging that there's a possibility here for an increase in units above the 1354, above the promised replacements. And we try to, the idea is to adding more units that are mixed income will on site deconcentrate poverty, right? Because right now it's all housing residents. Bringing some people on would increase the population but decrease the poverty percentage of poverty. And then just finally the last phases, we actually are, because of the Harrison projects are some of the highest density apartments on campus. They're moving into those phases that are in right next to the block A and block B2, if you remember. They're moving right into the transit, and that's around 200 units out of like a 330 unit building. So there's still a majority of residents moving in there. It's not all mixed income. So it's more of a proportional thing at that point. I hope that answered your question. Thank you for your questions.
And thank you for that, Brian. I think Commissioner Impastato brought up a great point in that some additional surveying would be very good and very useful. And I also think that this is the time to do it, because experience has taught me that until there's at least renderings and a draft, an initial draft of ideas in the plan, that you don't get very good public feedback until you get that, and people can look at something and then suddenly it springs concerns and it springs questions, and this is an apt time for a survey. And also I'll let Commissioner Reyes have the floor, but I would like you folks to address that. What have we done for looking into, I think the deconcentration point that you started to touch upon is important, right? It's important that we don't send a message to our residents that, hey, you can only live in this one part of town. And that's been something that's been going on for about 70 years since we first established a public housing authority in Hoboken. And I wonder, have you made any progress in talking to the city about, the one underdeveloped, really large portion of our city is north of the viaduct, and they've recently come up with a redevelopment plan, but have we talked to anybody about maybe doing a land swap with some of our land, either that's close to the 9th Street light rail or close to the 2nd Street light rail, to potentially get more land where we can have more acreage than we currently have, and we can do a little deconcentration so that people don't feel like, if you live in public housing, you can only live in this one spot. Have you done anything along those lines?
Yeah, maybe Susan can answer that one. She's been in contact with the city the most, but
yes, we've been in touch with the city, excuse me, and their planning staff before. We continue and expect to have a follow-up discussion with them, and on the agenda would be what you're asking. Excuse me. And where there are opportunities there for that type of other development.
And I think it's also, a question back to you, Mr. Mello, about is that, what the long-term vision of the housing authority's goals are, right? So, we are lowly architects and planners here that aren't ones with the coin purse, so to speak, in making these decisions. So we can certainly study land that seems viable, but the question for you guys is that something that, let's say in 5 years we're through this plan and something comes up, is that a priority for you guys to try to diversify your parcels throughout the city? And if that's the case, then
For me,
we have to help.
it would be a worthwhile goal, and it equates as almost the Hoboken equivalent of. I know you have examples throughout the nation in places that are much more spread out, right? Hoboken's an extraordinarily compact place, but it would be the equivalent of, let's say, in Ohio, if you had a housing authority that owned a parcel of land that was at a crossroads where, I don't know, a fast food chain or a large commercial store like a Target or something would want that land. And what you do is you lease that land to them on maybe a 100-year lease, and then you get 2 or 3 times as much land somewhere else in your community. So you're creating more housing, you have more acreage, and you're using your really high priority land that doesn't need to have residential there for a use that's going to get you a lot more dollars coming into the coffers. Now, Hoboken's different. It's not some sprawling municipality like you'd have in most of our nation, but we do have property that's very close to light rail stations. We have property that we can maybe get a little more income flow out of. And in exchange for that, we could get more acreage in one of those few underdeveloped parts of town, like north of the viaduct as an example. So I'm just wondering if you've looked into those sort of exchanges.
Yeah, well, Mr. Miller, if I could just jump in for a second though, but that's part of the survey too. That we do, I mean, there at the work sessions, we heard a couple of residents say that, but we want to really gain a really good understanding of that, because it goes back to what was said before, that this is, I think Mr. Impostado said it correctly. This is, we're looking to do what's best for the residents and just really want to clearly understand, what are the opportunities that they're looking for. And then you also have to remember that this plan is really working with the land that we have. I mean, because this is what we have to work with right now. And there are these discussions that we're looking to have with the city to further these discussions. And this is where we need support from the board. And this goes back to everybody working together once we really have that understanding of what the residents really would like to see happen here.
And I like that you seem to have staged it so that the land that gets redeveloped first is the land that would be least, exchangeable, right? So like we're leaving open opportunity, like we're leaving open the parcels that are closest to mass transit that might fetch us the most dollars if we lease them. We're not developing that immediately. What we're developing immediately is the land that we know we're gonna continue to build our housing on, and we're gonna house our folks on, so nobody gets displaced.
I would say that like the number one motive is to get the replacement, these phasing started. That's again a long-term possibility.
Yep.
And then the other thing just to add about the phasing and the way this version at least is another good point about it is it creates kind of a critical mass of housing quicker around Mama Johnson to kind of create a neighborhood that's not completely disjointed from itself throughout this process. So, it's starting in one end, but it's creating a safe neighborhood. It's going to be creating something tangible sooner than later. I think that's part of the idea.
Great.
If I could add one point, Mr. Mello, what often happens is the authority, the board, and in consultation with its residents and its professionals that are helping come up with the initial concepts, as the process evolves, the authority develops and refines its objectives. So let's say through this process, your objectives include maximizing the value of the land around the light rail station, diversifying the localities within the city so that the main campus is has a better income mix, and you have other places within the city for people to live. As the authority moves through the process, there will be advertisement and procurement looking for development teams to come to the authority that hear what your objectives are. They know other plans around town. They may have control of some other land. They may be able to bring innovative proposals to the authority. So you may have some general framework, and then you may get suggestions or proposals from people that are going in a direction you hadn't thought of, but you might like them better than some of what has been proposed in the early stages. So that's a typical evolutionary process for a large multi-phase redevelopment project like this.
And that's what I'm looking for, because we want as much income as possible, and we want to provide as much housing and have as much acreage under our control as possible. So, you know, if as we start to prove ourselves and we start to redevelop, if we can, let's say, you know, whether it's Academy Bus or somebody who owns some of those surface parking lots in the north of the viaduct area, if they want to build an office building that's going to bring in a ton of income to us somewhere near one of the 2 light rail stops where we have property, and they're going to exchange more property north of the viaduct, which helps us deconcentrate and give people more options, different parts of town to live in. I think that's a win-win-win. So
Yeah, and just so
that stuff can evolve.
Just so we're clear, like, and that's why the survey again to some, I forgot, is it Tori or Brian's point, that we need to do the survey because it's possible that some of our residents don't want to move, right? Like they might not want to go live on the northwest side of town. So to that point, when we do the survey, do you guys in the other areas of the country that you've done this, what percentage of the survey responses is acceptable to where you feel comfortable that the residents have spoken, kind of? And then second to that, I'm curious, do you ever put in like incentives to fill out the survey? So, you know, let's say we could leave a survey under everyone's door. We could post electronic feeds, Nixle alerts, but, you know, is there maybe an incentive of $5 off your rent or, you know, something like that to really give someone an incentive to fill this thing out so we get your response? So that's and then I have one more question after that, but I love to hear your thoughts on what has worked in other areas.
I can take that one. So I would say in terms of the incentive piece, that is something that is typically left up to the housing authority and the board to kind of work that out.
Sure.
It's one of those ones where, you know, you've had a few that have done it, but you have some that have not. I'll say in most cases, majority that we have experienced have not. But again, you got to really look at what's best for Hoboken and the Hoboken residents versus saying, you know, well, this worked in this place here, so let's just apply it here. And I just think that that's the real important part of, because we hear you loud and clear about the survey and just continually interacting with the residents. Because, I mean, you know, right now there were a lot of discussions about this piece of land, that piece of land, and we're in different places. But I just wanted to say that the one thing that I hope that we all agree on and continue is to keep the residents informed through this process.
Yeah.
Because that is very important.
What's the percentage? Do you have an answer on that one? On what percentage is acceptable?
Yeah, I'll answer that. So there's a competitive program that actually was the stimulus behind the 2020 vision plan called Choice Neighborhood Initiative. And the grants under that varied over the years, 20 million, 35 million. The notice just came out yesterday for this coming cycle, and grants are up to $50 million. In order to get any of the points for resident consultation under that program, you need to have 50% of the households respond to the survey.
50%, okay.
50%. Now, what we typically do, and we've been planners and grant writers on a lot of those grants. In fact, we helped 15 authorities get Hope 6 grants and another 16 get Choice Neighborhood grants. So we've got a lot of experience with that. But what we try to do is put the most critical questions having to do with the planning, the physical planning first, and prioritize those. So for example, questions about, the authorities said they don't want to issue vouchers. Well, maybe there are tenants whose goal is they'd love to get a voucher, and they know there aren't places in Hoboken that take them, but maybe, they have mobility, choice mobility. They could go to another location. I know that that's not the goal of the authorities. I understand it, but that's a question that often gets asked. Where would you ultimately like to live if you could? Want to stay in Hoboken? You may have people that are interested in a home ownership solution. So those kinds of things we like to hear. Some people are more comfortable staying in public housing as long as they can. So they might not want to move into the new units that are funded with Section 8 until they have to, until there's no more public housing left in Hoboken. I'm just throwing out a couple of examples of the kinds of things having to do with the physical and relocation planning that we try to get those questions addressed first.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. And see, Ms. Reyes' hand has been up for a while.
It's okay.
Commissioner, you have the floor.
Yes, I obviously feel and believe that every resident here deserves better housing. Some of these apartments are really in bad shape and they do need to be redeveloped. Again, as I've always said, my concern is about nobody actually being displaced. But I think that Mr. Impostado made a great point the other day on the meeting when he stated that this project can take up to 20 years before it's actually completed, because we're really on the beginning stages. So I feel that it's very important for the board, the director, to also keep in mind that what are we going to do for the residents in the meantime that are living in these conditions where their apartments are in such bad shape and they're living with mold and their apartments are falling apart. I think we need to focus on also repairing what we have now until we do get the funding and we are able to build. I don't think that we should just, I know a lot of the things, sometimes I bring it up and they're like, oh, well, when we have this new housing, this is not going to be an issue. And you're right, when we have new housing, it's not going to be an issue, but it is a current issue. And it's unfair for a resident to live in these conditions for 20 years until this is actually, into fruition and it's happening. So I just wanted to, put that out there and just for us as a board and the director and everybody else who works here and deals with the residents on a daily basis, to keep that in the forefront, that we do have to do things now to make sure the individuals, the residents here have a better living, live better and safely until this can come into fruition and we do have the money to build and do everything else.
Couldn't agree with you more, Commissioner. I think that's right. And I think we're continuing to do that. I think you've seen our housing finance agency, a little over 12 million, new roofs, new elevators, boiler systems through us and CDBG. We have a lot of high hopes for what may pass through Congress this week in order to give us some more funds to do that. When we went out for the housing finance agency money, some of the criticism was, why are you doing this when these buildings may get demolished at some point? No, that's not, no, sorry. We need to address these issues we have now for the people living in these units, and we will continue to address that and look for every source of funding we possibly can, and build on the success we have. You can't renovate units when the roofs are leaking. We've managed to do the roofs. You can't have a decent place to live when the elevators are breaking down weekly. We've managed to address those. You can't live in a unit where the boiler is not providing heat in the wintertime. So we've managed to address those, and those systemic problems we're making progress in, and we will continue. Commissioner, that's our commitment, my commitment. We will continue to work on those and look for every source of funding we possibly can, because you are absolutely right. These are people's homes and we need to continue to improve in that area. Thank you.
And
So
10% of the units have been rehabbed in the past 2 years. So we have been progressing, and we're upgrading certain appliances, and we're, cheapest isn't best anymore. We're doing well.
And I mentioned earlier the Build Back Better legislation. I think there are some contours of the funding in that legislation. It includes $65 billion to address the backlog of unmet capital needs in public housing. And it's interesting to look at the contours of the funding. So I mentioned the Choice Neighborhood Competitive Program, which is typically $200 million a year. They're proposing $1 billion for that. So 5 times as much money in that very competitive pot. Then the draft legislation has $10 billion for what I referred to earlier as capital funding. So that's the level of funding that's the source of funding that the authority is using to pay for your elevators and your new appliances and what repairs are being made. And that's 3 or 4 times the level that authorities would typically get in a year that would be in that part of the $65 billion. And then there's a larger number, 40, 45 billion, that is still undecided, but a lot of it may well be for competitive projects that are shovel ready, which hopefully you'll be close to being shovel ready by the time those funds become available. At least you could be shovel ready for your first offsite new construction phase. And those may have some competitive elements to them. So green elements, or dealing with climate change, or dealing with sea level rise, flooding, those kinds of things. So there could be a number of ways where your needs and your project fit well under categories of competition. So it's not all or nothing. It's not all the money going out to large scale projects. It's going to address authorities' needs across the country, and smaller needs, mid-size needs, and large needs. And you have some of all of those. So.
Well, can we get,
Thank you for all of that. And Commissioner Reyes, thank you very much for bringing up that point. And Commissioner Lewitt, thank you for pointing out what we have done so far. And, unfortunately, I think for a long time in our housing authority, we saw work being done that wasn't done properly. There was patchwork. If somebody had a mold problem, there was just new drywall put up, but the underlying mold problem was not rectified at all. And that's a Band-Aid, and it doesn't do anything over the long term. We saw community rooms where I was at a ribbon cutting for a community room that was just mouse infested within 5 to 10 years. This is not how things should be done. So I think, we're making meaningful progress, and meaningful progress is not always fast progress, but it's meaningful, and it stays and it lasts. And then with that being said, I think Dr. Russo has had his hand up for some time, so we'll give him the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, number one, thank everybody for their comments, because I think it's important for not only the residents and everyone on this call here to know what our plans are, but it's important that the residents throughout the city and the city's administration understand what our goal is. And we all so far have been saying the same thing about having our residents be able to live anywhere throughout the city. And hopefully we can develop projects to do that. but I always like to caution everybody, when we make that statement, we all have our own vision of what that looks like in our own head. And as long as we are all committed to that goal, if that vision that you specifically have changes a little bit, I hope that you are willing to change with it, right? It's important for us because there's 1,000 things that I would love to see happen. But if the overall goal is met and they're not exactly the way I want them to happen, I'm still 100% a supporter of where and how that does happen. And I think it's important for us to always realize that it might not be exactly the way we envision it, but as long as the overall goal will be met, that the residents in the housing authority will most certainly benefit from it. And the city as a whole will benefit from it because it's just good planning throughout the city. And just one last point I want to make. I spoke to the mayor directly. I spoke to our business administrator, Jason Freeman, and they are loosely committed to doing everything that we're talking about without the specifics because we just don't have those specifics yet. But they're willing to talk about parcels of land that the city may own or parcels of land that the city may acquire and doing land swaps and doing all these different things that we've talked about without any specifics. The overall goal there is the same on the city administration side and the mayor as well. So I just want to point it out to everyone on the call, knowing that we have partners, not just here at the authority, but throughout the city. And I think we all want to achieve the goal. So I just wanted to give that one statement. So thank you, everyone.
No, that's excellent to hear, Councilman Dr. Russo, and it's important. And I mean, Mike and I worked together very closely on the whole 770 project, and I think that is how it went down. I think that's why it was successful because we let the goals guide what was happening more so than a defined end result. I think the way that project turned out was very different than anybody would have anticipated, but I think it did achieve the goals. It provided 10% affordable housing. It provided public open space. It provided, flood fighting mechanisms, water retention, and things like that. And as long as we let the goals take priority rather than any vision of how to achieve those goals, I think they were achieved. So, great points. All right, anybody else?
I have, Chairman,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Impastato, floor is yours.
Oh, great. Brian, I'm curious to know how much, I know we talked about it on Tuesday, but, just would like to repeat it if you could and go over a little more detail. How much of the Vision 2020 plan was taken up for this, both on the architectural side and the planning side? Because if you do look at the plans, there are a lot of similarities. So I'm just curious, how much did you guys use that plan to kind of draft up yours? If you can answer that.
Yeah. So we certainly read the document and reviewed it. And if you read the initial introduction, it talks a lot about principles of new urbanism, which that previous firm is a member, and we are a member of the Congress of New Urbanism, which is a kind of an industry led. It was a movement, right? Started in the early 90s. Actually, it was very influential in Hope 6 developments as far as making walkable communities and revitalizing neighborhoods. So we share the same fundamental principles of appropriately scaled neighborhoods, appropriately scaled blocks, walkable streets for everybody. There's a broad list of things that we believe in and we attribute to all of our work in our firm, not just affordable housing. But so that we aligned there, and so when we read that and looked at the plan, we said, this is not a bad. A lot of things were actually not a bad at all about it. It was based in logic. It was based in this idea of bringing back the fabric. And so I would say there were some differences, even just in 10 years on the approach. as far as they were using some land that we understood couldn't use the community garden to build a parking garage. And there were some other parts of that we just, kind of drew the lines and we can't kind of go forward with those pieces. But I think they were using a very similar building type. I don't think they got as specific in the building types or the density. There wasn't like an actual plan in there. If you look, it says all axon, so it's kind of hard to understand what some of their practical implementational strategies were. And so, we certainly looked at it, and it was a good plan in a lot of ways. And this is 10 years later. The kind of funding, and that was actually, I think, done in preparation for a possible CNI grant, if I'm not mistaken, or was it Hope 6 even back then?
Oh, CNI.
So there was some, understanding that it was set up for this. We're probably going to go through a different funding process.
Can you talk about those different funding mechanisms and what the advantages, disadvantages would have been if we went 10 years ago with CNI? If Hemi could go through it, I think he's the right one, right?
Yeah, it might be even worth another discussion on that, because that's a long a long question answer you want. But the big thing is with the differences between Hope 6 and in CNI, and I'm going to speak for Jaime here because I'm going to try to distill it down to my I think a one sentence answer is. The CNI grant incorporates the larger neighborhood, and so it's not just housing; it's housing, people, and
neighborhood.
Thank you. So it tries to, it usually is meant for neighborhoods that the entire neighborhood that surrounds a housing authority property is extremely distressed. Not just the housing itself, and it tries to uplift the entire neighborhood. Sure. In our case here, for better or for worse, the Hoboken's neighborhood, for better, I hope, but the neighborhood the housing authority is surrounded by a part of Hoboken that has already been uplifted, right? As we all know, it's kind of up against we want to call it gentrification, or it's up against the wall on Jackson Street there. So it doesn't. This is more about uplifting the housing, if that makes sense. And the funding mechanism thing is a much more complex thing that I can hand off to Jaime if you want to give a short answer.
The big thing, if Jaime can just answer this question. 10 years ago, if we had the plan and it's with that funding mechanism, CNI, what would have been the probability of that plan, being executed?
Well, it's a very competitive program, and everything gets scored. Okay, so the capacity of the sponsoring organization, so the authority and the city. I did a scoring in May of this year, looking at how well the authority might do. A very preliminary scoring, but I've done a lot of these, and I would say that an application for this site in this neighborhood under the Choice Neighborhood Program would barely meet threshold. So there are threshold requirements of scoring in each of the categories. So the capacity of the implementing organization. So your authority has no prior experience implementing a large scale area redevelopment. As best I understand this, the city has not done something that would qualify the city to be the lead in that area. Then you need a lead organization for the neighborhood redevelopment. In our discussion in May, when we talked about it, we really couldn't identify a strong organization that would really score well. We've had instances where, well, for example, the entity that's leading the development needs to demonstrate that it's completed a comparable project. Okay.
So what's different now?
Pardon me?
What's different now that gives us the opportunity now, 10 years later? Because it doesn't seem like the authority.
No, you won't, you probably wouldn't be threshold now for the choice neighborhood unless they change the scoring criteria.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, you're talking about one specific fund. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for both the Section 18 program, which commissioners are familiar with, and the RAD program, those are open to every public housing program because they don't bring a grant with them. They don't bring the grant funding, but they bring a mechanism that lets you generate the borrowing capacity and leverage it with tax credits. So you actually can get more money under this model than you could have under the old choice.
So is it fair, not sorry to cut you off, and I appreciate this, to me, this is very valuable. Is it fair to say that 10 years ago, if there was RAD, we had the plan and we had the vision? If we had RAD, we could have done it.
Yeah, I would say, well, I mean, that you would have,
The monumental difference.
They would have the same problems
difference now is that we have RAD.
Well, that's a very major difference. Now, one other difference is, I mean, one barrier is we don't know yet what your infrastructure costs are going to be and where the funding is going to come for that. And that's going to be a very major, for the main campus. That's going to be the biggest challenge. So you may, you may be able to have done substantial rehabilitation without tearing down and completely redoing all the infrastructure. But if that's in your plan, then you're going to need more money than you could have gotten 10 years ago with just RAD or even the Section 18 program, which you were probably eligible for 10 years ago as well for the main campus.
Thank you very much for your time. That really that sheds a lot of light for me, and I think it's good for our residents to know that we're really the fruits of our past, and there was a great vision 10 years ago, and unfortunately, for whatever reasons, we never followed through with it. And I'm glad that we've got you guys now and leading the charge, but it doesn't. I don't think we do the justice of that Vision 2020 plan 10 years ago to have the courage that they did and the vision to kind of lay this out on what's possible. I don't think we're, without RAD right now and this going on, I don't think we're at this point. And I think the current plan's similarities speaks volumes to that point. So thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah. Wonderful points. All right. Do we have any further questions about what we're doing moving forward? All right. Thank you so much, everybody. All you professionals have done a great job so far, and I'm very confident you're going to do a great job moving forward. So thank you for your time, and thank you for
we look forward to talking to you.
You've done.
Yeah, we look forward to developing with Mr. Recco the survey. I think that's a great next step, and we look forward to talking to you all as well ongoing with this to again build consensus with everybody so this becomes real. So thank you.
Thank you to all the partners. We appreciate your being here. I think you may comfortably leave and go on to your other lives, and we'll take it from here.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good meeting. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Troy,
Take care, everyone.
Troy,
Yes.
Troy, this is a
Yes.
court reporter. You just said at one point in Washington, D.C. What was the name of the neighborhood again? Because you said it and I didn't understand it. I didn't.
Sure. The name of that neighborhood is Arthur Capper.
Arthur Capper. Thank you so much.
And the broader name for the neighborhood is the Navy Yards.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank
Great
you.
night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Good night, everybody. Yeah. Arthur Capper, one of the many dozens of projects that these folks have done successfully throughout the nation. Okay, so I think we're on to
Any other public
is it
comment?
time for the public? It's time for the public comment.
Public portion.
right.
Yes.
Do we have anybody from the public who is ready to speak on
Miss, yeah,
this
Miss
general
Adrian
agenda?
Rollins.
All right. Adrian Rollins, are you with us?
Yes.
Adrian, I'm not going to start the clock until I know you're on.
1 second. I have to promote her to panelist because she's using a very old version of Zoom.
That's fine.
I have to kick her out from the meeting when she finished talking. That's the only way with the version of Zoom that she has.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm sure we can all trust Adrian to be a panelist. Welcome, Ms. Rollins. Welcome, Ms. Rollins.
Hi.
You wanna turn off your speaker.
I just did.
Awesome. All right.
Okay, I have several issues that need to be discussed. Maintenance, for one. The hallway in my building is disgusting. I've offered to do it for $50 an hour because your staff seems not to know how to do the cleaning properly. And when they say they mop, they just mop dirt around and the dirt gets on the wall, which makes the wall look disgusting. They need to be taught properly on how to do cleaning. I can teach them that as well. Painting, the walls need to be painted as well. They just don't do an overall good job at all. And if you care to walk in the hallways or do a tour and actually pay attention to what they're doing, you would see what I'm talking about. But none of you ever come in our buildings, so you wouldn't know what it looks like. The only board member who knows is Barbara because she lives here. When it comes to mold issues, they are still only doing a Band-Aid job. It's not being done properly, where you have to cut out parts of the wall and redo it, etc. If you look it up, that's exactly what they're supposed to do. I've Googled it. I also have friends who know how to do it properly, but that's not going to happen at this time. The residents that you need to take care of, Ms. Crystal Rodriguez, you know who her issue, Mr. Merchant or Yolanda should know what's going on with her. They need to get in touch with her with a viable solution to her issue. Mr. Recco was also sent a letter. He was CC'd a letter that he needs to address. Her issue needs to be taken care of. A transfer is part of that issue. For Sandra Kelly, she called last week, I believe it was, the wall in the living room where the air conditioner is, the wall is literally falling down. The next rainstorm, she's going to be able to put her hand out the window through the wall. She's waiting for it to be taken care of. She has serious health issues that this is making worse because of everything that's falling down, and it's I've seen the pictures, and if maybe the director or somebody would walk over there and actually see the hole in the wall and get it taken care of, it's behind the radiator, she would be greatly appreciative of that. My sister's unit, the mold has not been taken care of. They gave her a spray. Maintenance gave her the spray, told her to spray it every day, and the mold will go away. She's been doing it for over a week or 2 or 3, and it's still mold. She's asthmatic. She has a serious case of asthma, worse than mine. So that needs to be taken care of. She also has been requesting for the last 2 years a new stove with a working oven, and that's been ignored. She still hasn't received the stove. The stovetop works, the oven is the issue, and after it filled her house with gas the first time, she doesn't want to keep using it. And nobody seems to get it through their heads that this is a dangerous situation. She doesn't want to use the oven for fear of it blowing up and killing her. Yeah, that needs to be replaced. The whole contraption is over 25 years old. And I've actually sent emails regarding it and the recommended time frame on when you should be changing stoves. The manufacturers recommend 15 years, not longer than that. Dayanara Rojas at 400 Marshall Drive. She needs to be transferred out of that unit. She has serious health issues that the elevator, when it goes out, she's trapped in her unit. She can't navigate the stairs to go up and down. I have spoken with her, and I know her personally, and to try and even attempt to go down one flight of stairs is very tiring and debilitating, to say the least. And also, she says there are also multiple issues in the unit that have to be addressed and have not. So if somebody could reach out to Dayanara, that would be perfect. Managers have her information. Also, the following names, I don't know if you've reached out to them recently, like within the last 2 weeks. Danielle Borges and Ramona Braxton, both of them still have issues and they need to be reached out as well. But, you know, mold issues are the worst in the housing authority, and they need to be taken care of properly and not done as they have been. You have to see it to believe it, and I have seen and believed. Maintenance does not do a great job with that. And to tell the resident to take care of the issue is a slap in the face. Honestly, mold should not be taken care of by a resident. It should be taken care of by a professional who can do the job properly, because obviously your staff has no clue what they're doing. If that was the case, there wouldn't be repeated calls for mold. And that's what you get, repeated calls for mold. It seems like nobody cares about that. And in the case of my sister, with having this asthma and mold, not a good combination. So, you know, that needs to be taken care of. And I think I've tackled everybody.
All right, thank you, as always. Thank you very much. All right,
And I'll follow
anybody
up.
else queued up to speak?
Excuse me, I'll follow up with an email with this information. Not that anybody answers it anyway, because it takes 5 seconds to read an email. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else queued up to speak?
No more, no one else. No emails. We're good.
Okay, great. If we could move on then, or is there any reports of the committees? All right.
Do we want to talk about?
Yes.
Mr. Mello, I know that the security committee was able to meet with the Hoboken Police Department. I believe it was last Friday. Again, it was a very I wouldn't say it was a good meeting. I want to personally say that I have seen a change, not only with the presence that's on Housing Authority. I know that in the past, I have stated that, yes, they're on site, but they're not where we as the residents think they should be, because what we call the hot spots, or what we consider the hot spots. So, but I've seen a change in that. I have seen that the police are now putting them exactly where they should be, because then they actually are able to deter the groups from forming and hanging out. The police I find them friendlier than before. I think the community policing aspect of it is getting better. I want to say that I don't think it was just this building, and I actually sent the director a text about it, that just the other night, I happened to go downstairs to get my child, and the police were actually in the building. They were doing a complete sweep from top to bottom. I actually got a call from another resident because they were in her building. And she's like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, is something going on? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? And she's like, oh my God, the police are in the building. I'm like, oh, they're just probably checking. So it's not just to say that I'm seeing it. Obviously, other residents are seeing it. It's a good thing. I have seen the sheriff department. I know that the chief of the police had reached out to the sheriff to see if maybe the police that's stationed here by Columbus Park also patrol our area, our housing authority. And I must say that I have seen a few of them patrolling the area, driving around. So that's been successful with the police department. I also want to say that the lights have been amazing for Harrison Gardens. There may be residents that may not be happy, and I understand that, but I feel those lights were put there because it was a necessity. And to be honest with you, since those lights have been there, I cannot tell you how the hanging out has not been as bad. And I think that Frank and the director could attest to that, because I'm pretty sure you guys can see that. Nobody wants to stay in the courtyard. Nobody wants to be where the lights are. So that has deterred them from hanging out there. So that has helped immensely here in Harrison Gardens. So I look forward to the new lights being put up permanently, and we don't have the other ones, but listen, it's working. I know sometimes things don't happen as quickly as some of us want to see it happen, but I think these are small steps in actually making our housing authority safer. And I think that, yes, we did concentrate on this and here, Harrison Gardens right now, because it was a necessity with everything that was happening. But that's not to say that the police department has forgotten about the rest of the campus and that they're not working at the rest of the campus. And I just want to say, since this is a public meeting, when you do see an officer, if there are residents listening, if you do see an officer, it's okay to say hello. It's okay to start a conversation, or even vice versa. They're not here. They're not our enemies. They're trying to help us and keep us safe. So guys, I just wanted to let you guys know that the security committee is working diligently to make sure that we're all safe. So that's just a little roundabout about our security committee. And I'm pretty sure that they're working with Frank and Recco also on other things. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman? Yes, Commissioner Russo.
Just quickly, I just want to make a comment. I know Adrienne calls in and she gives us an update almost at every meeting about residents that reach out to her. I really just want to make sure that everyone understands. She does reach out to all of us. She reaches out to Director Recco specifically as well. All of those concerns are being heard. And as Barbara just said, sometimes it doesn't go as fast as we like, but they're heard. We're continuing to try to work on them. I know one in particular case that Adrienne mentioned. The resident reached out to council members, Board of Education members, members on this board, the director himself, and we are diligently trying to make that situation better for our resident. And that goes across the board. I know it doesn't always happen as fast as we like, but they're not being ignored. We are working on the timing of all of that. At some point, we as a board should discuss a director of maintenance, see what we need to do there, and really get this to a point where this system works better for our residents, and the timing of that system works better for our residents, because it's important that they live in a safe community, and they're happy with their living situation. On the security committee note, I just want to reiterate what Barbara just said. I mean, it was a good meeting. We are doing what we need to do. The permanent lighting will help as soon as we can button that up. And that will be all throughout the housing authority, not just in the courtyard. So that will, the concern of having everything shift down to Fifth Street from the courtyard is an important one to note. But I think once we get the permanent solution in place, we'll make sure that the housing authority is well lit, and a lot of that late night hanging out will probably dissipate. So I think it's great. I think the police department has been a phenomenal partner. They've asked the sheriff's department to get involved. They have. I've asked the chief of police to reach out to New Jersey Transit to help along the light rail and at the light rail stops, so that we have additional officers. And I have an outstanding call out to the county prosecutor as well. So we're working on all cylinders there as well. So just a quick update there. Thanks.
Just a couple comments if I can too, with the security meeting.
Commissioner,
One thing that wasn't mentioned, Barbara and Mike did a great job recapping there. The one thing that was not mentioned was we are working on some policy changes with zero strike policy. There's a new name for it now, and putting up signs and what that means if our residents are not following the direction and the policy of what the signs state and how we're going to enforce. So we had discussions about that. Two topics on policy things and zero strike and were that I had written down, and we could go into detail maybe on another time, but the difference between on and off premises criminal activity and how that impacts what our prosecution team can do. And then also on dealing with alternative sanctions for some things that occur in the housing authority, rather than just a zero strike, or rather than someone getting arrested and then released back to their home. There's other things that we could potentially do to protect the safety of our residents. So we are working hard at that. We're trying to see what works in other towns as best we can and steal from them as much as we can. The police, just to reiterate, are doing a fantastic job. The one thing I wanted to mention that I've written down is tomorrow night is a Project Rocket. This is now the fourth meeting, I believe. I will be there in attendance. I'm sure Barbara will if she's around, and Mike. So it's at 6 o'clock at Monroe. Anybody, all are invited. I'm sure Director Recco has done a great job in attending. We have some concrete ideas that we're going to try to implement. One is a midnight basketball league that potentially might take place at the gym at 7th and Jackson, to try to get some of our residents maybe off the corners and into the gym in a controlled atmosphere, a fun way to get the police involved, playing against some of our residents, and just let them control it and do what they want, but at the times of night where maybe we can engage some of them to do more positive things. So we look forward to updating you on how that goes.
Great, thank you. And then, Director, if you could give a brief overview of, we had a finance committee yesterday, and the need for, I guess, new RFPs when it comes to Section 8 vouchers moving forward, project-based vouchers.
Sure, I'd be glad to. As I mentioned in my report, that the Finance Committee considered and decided, based on the Housing Choice Voucher funding for the coming year, to put out a new RFP for project-based voucher folks that have projects that want to submit for possible funding of the project-based voucher. We expect that we can have that RFP out on the streets in January, and then coming into late winter, be able to evaluate any RFPs that might come in for project-based vouchers. It's exciting.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment there if I can.
Yes.
One note from that meeting that I think is important is that our tenant-based vouchers, we're having, and Frank can comment on it if he wishes, but we're having a tough time for Hoboken-based landlords that accept those to grant those vouchers. We currently have 5 out on the street, and I think it's just a tough road to get someone to take those in. So I think that also was taken into the decision making to not to take the funding that we have and go back and try to do a project based, whether anybody who wants to commit to that RFP and put an application is more than happy to do so, whether it is the former YMCA building, MBS, or it is the veteran housing who has expressed interest to get some of that funding, maybe a collection of both, or any other entity that wants to apply for it. So that's just kind of what the funding and the formula came out to. We have about $9,600 a month to give out in what's left over. And that is kind of where we came up with that decision.
Andrew, what was that dollar amount you said? 96?
9,600. Yeah, that's what Bill Ketchum came up with, his formula.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so I don't believe we have any other reports from committees. Am I missing anything?
Resident services.
Resident services, please, the floor is yours.
So we'd like to thank Hopes and Barbara and team for the Halloween event. It was so much fun. Everybody came out, the entire community came out to 2 trunk or treats. We also want to thank the West Side Women and Fleet DJs. We had an amazing trunk or treat the day before Thanksgiving, Halloween. So many people from all over Hoboken came out. I think Commissioner Reyes would agree. It was a great community event. We hope to do that again next year, hopefully if the partners agree. We're also trying to continue to build on the community support. We're having a holiday event on December 20th from 5 to 8 in the courtyard. You should have received an email. So far, we have gotten some great turnout for that. And we just want to continuously keep building community for not only our residents, for all of the residents of Hoboken. Thank you. Oh,
Thank you
and
for
one
that.
other fast thing, the Resident Service Committee is working on the survey. Commissioner Reyes is taking the lead. We've all written some questions. We're taking everything into consideration, and that should be out by mid-December.
Yes. And one of the things, Mr. Mello, so that you're aware of, is that the survey, the way we're going to do it is we're going to also put a QR code on it. So when we actually post them in the hallways, they can just go up with their phone and scan it, and they'll be able to complete the actual survey. So I know that Mr. Pasado said, it was so, it's, we can do door to door, but I think with technology nowadays, I think it's so much easier. Everybody has a phone. They can just scan the QR code and get and do the survey. It's something that it's a practice that Hopes does when we do surveys. And I thought it would just be very instrumental to use it for this purpose, because it's going to make it easier and it's going to give us more access to all the residents. Like there really shouldn't be any excuse. If you have a cell phone, you should be able to complete the survey.
Absolutely. Well done. That's excellent. Yeah. And as a teacher of students who are much better with tech, yeah, the QR code is the way to go. So wonderful, wonderful news. All right, great. Anybody else? Okay, excellent. And yeah, I heard that trunk or treat was amazing. Commissioner Seitz and then Commissioner Reyes. So.
And Hopes is planning something for Christmas. We also are going to play a part, obviously, in the event that you guys are having, that the Housing Authority, we're going to come, obviously, and have some giveaways for the residents. But we are also planning another holiday event for all the children of the Housing Authority that we always do as well. And it's kind of going to be themed just the trunk or treat. Instead of giving candies, they'll have small gifts to give to the children. So we're working on that. And once that is finalized, I will send you guys the information, because obviously it's going to be in the same area, but it's going to be for all the, for our residents as well as 770 and the entire community. So.
Very good. Well, I regrettably had to miss trunk or treat, but I'm going to be there at that Christmas one. So looking forward to it. All right, great. I don't think we have anybody else. Am I missing anybody? All right, so let's move on to resolutions. All right, resolution number 2021-11.01, a resolution to approve the minutes for the October 14th, 2021 meeting. Do I have I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, do I have any questions or concerns about the minutes?
Yes, Chair, I do have a question / comment.
All right, Commissioner Sanford, floor is yours.
So at the previous meeting during new business, I read a statement into the record. That statement is not referenced in new business. That statement was to call for the immediate resignation of Commissioner Impastato. And I would like that reflected in the minutes.
Okay. All right, is that something that is typically done in the minutes? I guess that's a question for our reporter. Is that something that's typically done in the minutes?
That was in the transcript.
It was in the transcript.
What he read was in the transcript, and I remember him reading it, and I have it in the transcript.
Okay, is there a reference to that in the minutes, that a statement was made and that we could just have a reference to the minutes? I don't think it would be appropriate in the minutes to put the transcript, but we could certainly make a reference to it.
If you give me just 2 minutes, I can just pull up the transcript and just try to find it.
Thank you.
Can you give me just 2 minutes?
Sure, I mean, but legal, Mr. Fitzpatrick, I mean, is this something that needs an
Well, I think
addendum to
the
the minutes?
underlying issue, Chair, is not whether or not it's in the transcript. It should be in the transcript because it was said at the meeting. The question is why at least a reference to the fact that it was read into the minutes is not in the minutes of the past meeting.
Okay. So do we want
I think it should be. Whether you put every word in or not is another question, but there should be a reference to it having occurred. The commissioner is correct. It's part of what happened at the meeting.
All right, then
Mr. Chairman,
I'm going to make
I
a
could-
motion to, yes, Commissioner.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the question. I mean, I know and you're aware of this too, as a former councilman, a lot of times in our minutes at the council meetings, we would just have a very brief statement as to, in that instance, of course, Councilman Russo commented, rather than having the entire comment of whatever the situation may have been or whatever comment was made. It was just really a reference of someone commenting, and then as always, we could always refer back to the transcript.
Yeah, and
I don't know how you want to do that, but I think that's the way we always did it at the council.
That's the way I very much would want to go. My concern is that if that's not in there now, I think it would make more sense, and I'm going to make a motion just to vote on the minutes at next meeting, and we could have that added to the minutes, just a reference akin to what Councilman Russo just suggested, just a reference that the statement was made, who it was made by.
Yeah,
Right,
I have no problem holding on.
All right, so I'll
we
make
can do that.
I'll make a motion to table the voting on the minutes until next meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you need me to look it up? So do you want me to just forget about
No,
that?
just for next meeting, I just want it to be added to the minutes that there was a statement made, who it was made by, and just akin to what Councilman Russo just suggested. Okay. All right. So
And you could just highlight the fact that he wants me to resign. That just put it in bold letters.
Sure. Okay, so let's move on to resolution number 2021-11.02. A resolution authorizing the payment of the monthly list of bills for the Hoboken Housing Authority. I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any questions or concerns or comments on the list of bills?
I have a question. Take a stab at it if it's okay to go first.
Absolutely.
The Circle Networks, I see it's 2340 for the website for updates. The question is, it's just a simple one. Are these for updates we make for like content purposes? Or is this like, programming updates that need to have happen? And before you answer, I'll just, comment that if it's for content, do we have the ability on there to make the changes ourselves? Like I have two businesses. I run the website myself, and I have this thing called Website Builder where I just type in whatever I want to do and upload a picture, upload this, that. And it's very cost effective. So I don't have to hire someone to do it. Is that something we do have, or are we paying for that?
This is for redesigning, doing some redesign of the website in light of our new project that we're doing some redesigning and adding some things in light of the renovation redevelopment. So we did consult with the consultants to make sure that this was being done right, that we're getting the right content on there. I think if pressed, certainly our staff could do it, but it's always a matter of time. Should Daniel spend 10 hours of his time, 6 hours of his time doing this, or is it more economical to go to the person that designed the website and be able to communicate with that person and walk through that and make that happen? So it really is a content issue, but it's also in addition to our existing website, in essence, creating a new section of that website.
So just to clarify, that's $2,340 to add content.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, and do some redesign of that website so we can effectively communicate on that website.
If I may add, Mr. Recco, Commissioner Pistado, I work closely with Wendy. I am responsible for doing all of the content on the Housing Authority website. Wendy helps me with some of the programming and some of the technical issues that we sometimes have. So she's the one that does the technical aspect of that, as well as the new website that the Housing Authority is working on. But I do
Okay, cool. And then, so you're able to like go in and like add, change around wording and add a picture or two.
Yes.
You're able to do that.
Sure.
Yes, all the content that you see on the website, from images to the feature news to the events to adding on the menu to the updates on the bar, all of that is taken care of by me.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I misunderstood your question, but yes.
Yes.
All good. And then
So, sorry to cut you off, but just to further clarify, that is actually going back to a period starting in January. So this is basically 9 months. I only put the September billing date on it, but it actually, the initial period of it is starting in January.
Oh, that's helpful. Yeah, that's a big edit.
I apologize. That's my.
Do we want to change? Do we want to edit that so that it updates that? So just dotting our I's and crossing our T's. Make sure we put that on there, or no?
Well, I think in the future, we can look forward to putting on more clear dates if you wish, but I don't think it's going to affect tonight's list of bills.
The other question I had is Windstream. Just curious what that is. I'm sure it's a simple answer.
It's our telephone company. So it basically has all the hard-wired telephone lines. It's basically like your Verizon type of thing.
So I haven't, am I mistaken, or I haven't seen that before?
Yep, you see it every month.
Okay. And that's just so you know, Emil, the reason why I request the Excel version of the list of bills for anybody else that wants to do this, but I find it pretty easy, is that, I could kind of keep a ongoing tally of what things are in Excel. And if something, it jumps one month to the other, then it highlights it, which is pretty effective. I could share with anyone that wants to do that on their own. Not very complicated. So that's just, I'm sorry that you have to send it, but it's helpful for my terms. And I appreciate you doing it.
I have no issues. I created an Excel. I just send it out in PDF so it's clearer, but I have no issues.
Yep. Cool. Great. Thanks, guys. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Fantastic. Okay, so. All right,
Mello,
Paul,
I
do we have
have
any other questions regarding the list of bills? Yes, Commissioner Reyes,
I
the
just
floor is
have
yours.
2 questions. And number 12 for the computer equipment, did we receive new computers or did we update the computers? And then number 10 in the monthly contractual expenses, the 11,000 for the mechanical work for the AC units, where were those AC units located?
Can you go back to, first question? I apologize.
For the
Cut out.
computer equipment,
Uh,
I was just wondering if it was new computers that we purchased for the.
So it was a server that needed to be replaced. It was related to our card access machine. And I can get you further details on that.
I
But
don't need further, that's fine. I thought maybe we upgraded our computers or something. It's not a.
it's not like the office computers. It's more like hardware kind of support type equipment.
Okay, and then my other question was number 10 on the monthly contractual bills, the 11,000 for the ductless AC units. Where were those units, those AC units?
Sure. Just hang on one.
Emma, if I may, I can also add some clarity to that one because those were some of the issues that I reported. So the 411 community room AC, the 311 community room AC, and then the vandalized unit on the Housing Authority Mama Johnson Field.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you, Daniel, for that. And then I believe that there was some work needed at the 311 13th Street AC unit as well.
Yes.
So
then that's not just for one specific place. It's just like all amps, correct? Basically,
correct.
You
Yes, that's
mentioned
correct.
almost. Okay.
Yeah, like the one right at the field was over $5,000, and that was due to vandalism.
Are there any cameras there in the field?
What was that question?
I know he said that we had to replace it due to vandalism, right? So I'm wondering, are there any cameras at the field? Because we need to start.
Yes, and of course we followed up. Of course, we followed up on that, and you could not identify who it was that did that vandalism. And so we were definitely on top of that, and we're trying to find that, Commissioner. But unfortunately, the hoodie and all of that, you really can't find out what happened there.
Director, this is Daniel, and Barbara, I can also add to that issue. So that's an issue that we had on the field, and we also, on top of replacing the unit, we also added a cage to protect the wiring and the system as well. So hopefully we will not have those issues happen again.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you. That's great.
You're welcome.
That was it.
All right, great. Any other questions? If we could have a vote, please.
A.M. Pistato.
Yes.
Dave Lewitt.
Yes.
D. Mello.
Yes.
D. Reyes.
Yes.
M. Russo.
Aye.
J. Sanford.
Abstain.
E. Seitzman.
Yes.
All right, next on the agenda is resolution number 2021-11.03, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken approving the write-off of tenants' accounts receivable balances. I will make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Great. Any questions? Yeah, if we could have a vote, please.
A.M. Pistato.
Yes.
A. Lewitt,
Yes.
B. Mello,
Yes.
B. Reyes,
Yes.
M. Russo,
Aye.
J. Sanford,
Yes.
E. Seitzman.
Yes.
Resolution number 2021-11.04, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to award a contract for cleaning and disinfecting services. I will make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have one comment. I went back
Commissioner,
and
the floor is
looked,
yours.
oh, thank you, sorry. Jumped the gun there without approval.
That's all right.
I went back and looked at the scope of work and the contract with Made in Hoboken, which was $100,000 contract. And
Mr. Chairman, and Andrew, I greatly apologize to cut you off here, but I just want to give everybody a fact before you continue. The principal owner of that company actually reached out to me today and was very concerned about some comments that were made and talked a lot about the potential of litigation. And I know from being a council person, like as soon as people start talking that way, we like to try to deal with some of this stuff in closed session. So we have a strategy just in case that does happen. I don't know what the policy has been here, how you want to handle that, but I most certainly wanted to make sure.
I agree, and I thank you for basically putting up a caution warning. Commissioner Impastato, I think if we're going to talk about anything beyond the bounds of just this specific contract, and if we're going to rehash past contracts, I think it is better to have it in closed session. So I'm gonna offer that up to you. If your commentary or questions is not regarding this,
yeah,
I
wasn't gonna say anything of opinion. So I don't know what, and I don't,
But I do think Councilman Russo gives us a wise word of caution. If we're going to be talking about past services rendered and anything that could ever be even ever amounting to slander.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, even if we go in closed session and we decide that whatever it is that you would like to say, Commissioner, we come out and you have the opportunity to say that, I have no problem with that. I always err on the side of caution when it comes to litigation. If we could avoid any of that, let's do that, or at least have a strategy on how we're going to make whatever comments you need to make. And of course, by all means, have that contractor come in and defend their own actions, whatever that might be. So I just caution everybody. And if we want to jump into a closed session so we know exactly what you need to or want to say, and our lawyers are good with that, then we could always come out and you can make those statements on the record. I don't want to, in no way, shape, or form, stop you from saying what you want to say. I just want to make sure our lawyers have any strategies in place if, in fact, we go down that road of litigation. That's the only reason I bring it up.
No, listen, I
Can I
agree
ask a question first?
Yeah,
yes.
Are we talking about a payment to the enterprise that is on this list, or are we talking about a different enterprise?
No, I think
vendor.
Commissioner Impastato was going to talk about a different vendor, and I do want us to be
No,
cautious about opening ourselves up to any sort of slander.
I'm going to talk about this vendor.
Sorry.
I'm going to talk about this vendor.
You are going to talk about the payment to this vendor that's on the list.
The answer is we're on a resolution to award a new contract to a separate vendor. That's the resolution that's before us right now.
Yes.
Right. So do you have any questions about this vendor in particular, Commissioner?
I'll save my comments. I would like to go in the closed session to express my opinion on this vendor and my questions
the one
and
that
comments.
we're awarding the new contract to?
No, I think Commissioner Impastato wants to refer to a prior vendor, and I'm just concerned because if I remember my basic components of a slander charge, communication and
Well, it could be
dissemination.
slander, it could be libel, it could be anything.
Right, right.
And
So
of
just,
course,
you know,
part of
it's
that would be
important.
to find out what Commissioner Russo could add to this, but I'm just trying to break the issue down. Is there any question in your mind, Commissioner Impastato, about the award of this new contract?
There's multiple questions that I've expressed in the past, and it has nothing to do with the vendor. The more so of the process in what happens when the vendor comes in and what we do to
So
certify.
my suggestion is that we address this resolution.
Yeah.
And then if the board wants to go into closed session to discuss the overall issue you're addressing, we can do that just like we would do any new business at the end of the resolution.
Commissioner, do you have a concern that is immediately directed at this vendor and awarding this contract?
No.
All right, thank you. All right, so do we have any other questions about this vendor or this contract? All right, then I call the vote, please.
A. Impastato,
Yes.
A. Lewitt,
Yes.
D. Mello,
Yes.
B. Reyes. I think you're muted, Commissioner.
Sorry, yes.
M. Russo,
Aye.
A. Sanford,
Yes.
E. Seitzman.
Yes.
All right, resolution number 2021-11.05, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to reject all bids for Foxhill Gardens kitchen and lighting alterations. I will make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any questions about this?
How much higher was the estimate than we anticipated?
I would really not like to discuss that. We keep our estimates confidential until we award a contract, and it's not, in my opinion, in the best interest of the authority to discuss the estimates until the issues are overall resolved.
Fair enough.
All right, any other questions? If we could have a vote, please.
A. Impastato,
Yes.
A. Lewitt,
Yes.
D. Mello,
Yes.
B. Reyes,
Yes.
M. Russo,
Aye.
J. Sanford,
Yes.
E. Seitzman.
Yes.
Resolution number 2021-11.06, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to reauthorize the closure of the Harrison Gardens courtyard during select hours. I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. If you could just add a little color to this before we vote on it. Executive Director, please.
Sure. The committee went into session and we have moved forward with the idea that it will be a good idea to continue to have a closed area at the Harrison Gardens courtyard, but we wanted an adjusted time and they wanted adjusted time. And we came to consensus that rather than from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., that 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. would be a more appropriate time. When you get into summer, it stays lighter, a little later, that type of thing. So we wanted to adjust the original resolution because we're ready to make signs. So we wanted to go ahead and make that clear before we proceeded.
And Commissioner Reyes, that's your assessment that basically your neighbors basically said 9 o'clock's a little too early, correct?
No, I agree. And we also decided 10 o'clock because city ordinance says 10 o'clock, the loud music and so forth. So I think 10 o'clock is fair, I think. And we're also abiding by what the city ordinance is, so. And we discussed it with the police department and I think they were also on board as well.
Yes, they were totally.
Listen, I'm ultra conservative when it comes to quiet hours, but I lose those battles with my wife and my daughters. I can understand where you lose those battles. All right. So any other questions or comments? All right, if we could have a vote, please.
A. Impastato,
Yes.
A. Lewitt,
Yes.
D. Mello,
Yes.
B. Reyes,
Yes.
M. Russo,
Aye.
J. Sanford,
Yes.
E. Seitzman.
Yes.
Okay, I don't believe there's any new business. I think we kind of exhausted that at the beginning of the
I'd like to
meeting.
go back, Mr. Chair, for a second, touch
Sure.
on two things that were brought
Yes.
up by Commissioner Impastato. The first one that he brought up is the question of discussion of executive director review, and there was a suggestion that we go into closed session to discuss that. You may be familiar for years with a case called Rice, which involves notices to employees if there is any discussion of them that might impinge upon their employment status. As a matter of care and perhaps over caution, I would suggest that if we're going to go into closed session at the next meeting, we should give a notice. I will point out to you that the Rice notice has been supplanted by a notice that actually has been dictated by the Supreme Court, which is a higher level court than the Rice notice, called Kane. The spelling of the former governor, it involves the university. And in order to comply with that notice, if you're going to go into closed session or consider it, the appropriate thing would be to give that notice. So unless somebody tells me to the contrary, I'm going to give that notice.
All right, so
All right, so I have
should
my
we give that
instructions.
notice?
So we don't give rice
Well, if there's
notices
a
anymore.
question
We
about
give,
that, then the
we give
board
Kane
should
notices.
address
We
that.
give Kane notices. I'll tell you what.
all right.
I
Kane notices it is.
still have the cell phone of the former governor's son, who was my former neighbor. I'm going to have to let him know that the new Rice notice now bears their family name. All right.
Excuse me,
So
Mr. Chairman.
You could do that, please. Yes.
Yes, I'm not sure if new business is the appropriate time to ask questions of other commissioners.
Well, if you could give me a second in order to finish the other point I had, and then
yeah, sure.
the answer is you can always bring up new stuff, James.
Thank you.
If we're going to discuss contractual issues that could involve litigation, I would very much recommend that if we intend to do that at the next meeting, we do that in closed session. And that if there's any information that we need available to the commissioners in advance of that, probably given the nature of this, it should come to me, let me take a look at it. We'll get a resolution ready to go into closed session on these two items.
I would also ask, I mean, if there's questions geared towards commissioners, I mean, can't we, I would think they could be communicated electronically prior to a meeting. And then if they need to be brought up in the meeting, they can be brought up. I just don't want this to be a free-for-all.
If they come from me, I can protect that issue. I'm
Yeah,
particularly concerned that I don't like the idea that the vendor would put.
Commissioner Sanford, I would respectfully ask that any questions you have towards other commissioners, rather than do them in new business, communicate with our attorneys first, and just make sure that we're doing this in the proper legal fashion.
Okay.
You're talking about James, right?
Yes.
You're talking about James's point? Well, let me just finish with this. So if there's anything that anybody is aware of with respect to potential litigation, I'm concerned that anybody would be putting one of our commissioners on the spot with respect to this.
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to avoid. I don't want anybody to get.
Okay, well, I'm talking about what.
New business is not a time for us to start.
No, you're still
talking about things that should be run by
a different pew. You're in a different pew, Dave. I'm talking about whatever may have been said to Commissioner Russo. I don't want him to be in a bad position here. So if at any point he wants to get out of the bad position by putting me into it, I'll be glad to take that position.
And I will be glad to take you up on that offer.
There you go. I think that should be the rule of the remaining minutes of this meeting. Is anything that we doubt whether we should be getting into, I think it should be run by the very capable minds of the Fitzpatrick father and son team that we have in our employ.
Okay, but James's situation is a little different. To some extent, James has to judge whether or not this is appropriate as a new business item. And if you're concerned about that, James,
I, as the chair, am requesting that Commissioner Sanford run everything by our attorneys first. And in a preponderance of caution. Is that acceptable?
I
Well,
think
if he
that's,
wants to do that, I'll be glad to do it, but I can't, as a blanket, tell the commissioner that he has to.
It's just my recommendation as the chair and a colleague.
so, Mr. Chair, I will speak to council. And if council can provide guidance, I will consider that guidance. If council cannot provide guidance, then at the next meeting, I will ask my questions during
Sounds
new
great.
business. Or we could go into a closed session at the next meeting. I would welcome a closed session.
I think council can give us guidance on how to proceed at the next meeting, and I thank you for waiting for that guidance before we do proceed.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
that's it. Yes.
just a couple quick questions. I know we've talked about it already at a number of meetings with the potential of getting a, for lack of a better title here, a communications director to make sure that we're communicating with our residents at the highest functioning level that we can. I'd also like to address the maintenance director as well, because I think that goes to a lot of the things that are always requested of us by residents as to how we're handling certain situations. And I know everyone, it's an all hands on deck kind of a situation where commissioners are involved, the staff is involved, the director, Frank. I mean, literally everyone fields the questions, and we kind of do whatever we can to get them addressed as fast as we can. But I think making sure that we have that director in place is that one point of contact where we all know that goes directly to that point of contact, and they are handling that situation probably much better than all of us can without that person there. So, and again, doesn't require any great response tonight, but I'd like to try to get those things in place for the new year.
I can give you a quick one.
Yeah, please.
Please do.
The maintenance director, we had to go through some things with the enterprise partners, their HUD representatives, but we've gotten through that, and that that new advertisement for that position went out today.
Beautiful.
So it is on the street and today. The second position that we actually budgeted for in this year's budget, which is a new position, is that communications director, if you will, which we entitled an executive assistant. So that also went out onto the street today. So we've made some significant progress there. The enterprise partners, who again have come in to help us understand where our roadblocks are and what we're up to. We're very clear that part of our issue right now is that there's not enough bandwidth in the executive office. We have tried to put all of our resources out onto repairs, maintenance, management. And however, they have come in and said, look, you just need to have this person there. You need to expand your bandwidth over at the executive level. And they agree with you, in other words, Councilman. So we worked out with them a good job description. We've put it out on the street, and that's happening right now. The third position that was budgeted before, by the way, is a qualified purchasing agent. Which would be somebody that works with our purchasing department and increases the bandwidth for Emil and his staff. So we are hot on the trail of all three of those, and we've made significant progress. So talk to your friends and neighbors. You'll see those being advertised. I believe it'll go in the papers on Monday, but it is going up on our website tomorrow, along with its, I believe, already been posted in Indeed. Is that correct, Emil?
Yes, currently it's on Indeed, it's on in the trade websites, it's on Narrow
yes,
and on FADA. And it should hit the papers, Jersey Journal, Star Ledger on Monday.
Awesome. That's great.
Excellent.
That was absolutely excellent. And then just some other quick points that I had. One, well, two, probably both of them. One was, Director, did you reach out to our director in the city, Director Gonzalez, about the fleet management system that we've employed in Hoboken, where we have this constant turnover for vehicles? I know Andrew, Commissioner Impastato, brought it up at our last meeting as well, trying to figure that out, which potentially could save the authority some money and how we handle our vehicles.
Yes, sir. And we've had conversations with Jennifer Gonzalez, and the most direct conversations have been with Emil. So Emil, you want to address your conversations with her?
Sure. I spoke to Director Gonzalez, and she mentioned that the city uses Enterprise, who does basically rental cars as well. And they have a Sourcewell contract, so they've got a cooperative agreement that we're also a part of. And I got the understanding that the city is leasing 10 vehicles from them, primarily like hybrids. But she shed some light on the fact that it can be, like our plow trucks are more utility vehicles, but it's not going to necessarily be our kind of like our
Specialty vehicles.
smaller, specialty, like our Kubotas or
Right.
A Bobcat type of thing. She mentioned that there's a GPS option, so it can work in like a zip car fashion, and it's like a 5-year term. So she said that you've placed another order for 2022 for another 10 vehicles to ultimately get the city on that path. And she gave me a contact at Enterprise, and so our first step would be for this gentleman, David over there at Enterprise, to come over and review our fleet, and
awesome. We
could take it from there. But yeah, we're gonna reach out and,
Very
and
good.
see where it can go.
Awesome. And then Director, one last one. I promise that's it. I'll be done after this. One of the other many hats that I wear, I sit on the insurance commission for the city of Hoboken as well. And we are self-insured in the city. We are potentially, and I don't know if it would work, but we are potentially looking at having other entities join that insurance plan. And I don't know if, I think currently our employees are under the state health benefits plan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and it may be worth at least a conversation to do a cost analysis of what the state benefit plan is and the Chapter 78 contributions, and then the employer contributions versus what it potentially might be if the housing authority joins the city of Hoboken's plan. I'm going to reach out to the Hoboken Board of Education as well to see if they would do the same analysis, because it may be mutually beneficial to all parties if in fact we could do that. So I just wanted to put it on your radar and see if we could start that conversation as well.
Councilman, I welcome that. We're always looking at any opportunity we can. So I welcome that, and let's make those connections.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent point, Councilman, and especially about the insurance costs. I do want to say that, look beyond Enterprise too, because I know that it might not be the best fit for the city, but there are providers that do provide like the Bobcats and all that stuff too, but based on the leasing model that it might or might not work for us. So I wouldn't limit your search just to the Enterprise, but see if there's anybody else out there. Maybe Director Gonzalez could turn you on to somebody that wasn't the right fit for the city, but might be a right fit for us.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your turkey day, and we'll see you guys next meeting. Okay.
Awesome. Motion
All right.
closed.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.